Hey everyone, this is a timesheet training and overview. So if you have any questions, you can definitely put them into the chat box, but we can go ahead and get started here. So just for timesheets, we'll go over today just AmeriCorps policies, some of our ICAP policies surrounding timesheets, common errors and findings that we find during the last few years of doing timesheets. We are using a new system if you are a returning site that we switched to in the middle of last year. So we'll be going over just some of the common errors and findings for that, what support that we're going to provide as Iowa Campus Compact, and then I'll also take you through the Encore tutorial, that should say, and just show you what exactly that system looks like. So just starting off, just some AmeriCorps policies here. So members cannot record hours which violate any prohibited activities. They also cannot recruit their recruited and managed volunteers to do any prohibited activities as well. So any hours that are found to be kind of prohibited activities will be removed from, or we ask the member to actually remove those from the timesheets. Included in the members' services agreement, the position description and orientation agenda is just a full list of all of the prohibited activities that AmeriCorps members are not allowed to do. Members cannot record fundraising hours, which violate AmeriCorps requirements. So there's also a section just kind of outlining fundraising and what kind of fundraising your members can actually do. I will say that if your members are doing any type of fundraising, I wouldn't even put the hours into the timesheets. I would first kind of give me a description of what exactly that they're doing or what they will be doing, and just shoot an email to me so I can find out whether or not it is an allowable fundraising activity. Generally speaking, fundraising has to directly affect, or you have to be fundraising directly for your project. So whatever the project that is on the position description of the member, it has to directly affect that project and its volunteers. So it's very kind of the specific and narrow what kind of fundraising hours that members can actually do. And just some additional prohibited activities just to go over again. So members cannot apply for federal funding. So if they are at a site and they maybe need some kind of assistance with federal grants or anything like that, writing for a federal grant, just know that they cannot actually apply for it and be the principal investigator for any of those grants. They can't raise funds for their own living allowance. They can't raise funds for operating costs or annual funds. So an example of this would be an eligible service site could not be like Walk of Dimes or any kind of organization where you're doing fundraising for just the general operational costs of the organization. And then see the members' service agreement for just a full list of all of the prohibited activities. This will be made available to all members as well on the timesheet system. They'll have access to their full member agreement in digital form, and it outlines kind of everything and all the different policies that they have. Some additional ones for timesheets to think about. So vacation and sick leave cannot be reported on the timesheets. So that's not where you would actually or members will actually go to request any kind of vacation or sick leave. They will just kind of work with you. So whatever your policies are at your organization or your institution, that's kind of what they will follow. We don't necessarily need to see that on our end. If they're a minimum time member, they just need to hit that 300 hours. So they really can just coordinate with you or with their service site when they're doing any kind of vacation days or if they're sick or anything like that. But they don't need to send anything into us, and they don't need to designate that at all on their timesheets. Members must serve at least 1 hour per time period. So every timesheet that they will have available to them, so once they get into their timesheet system, they'll have all the dates that are available. It's a bi-weekly schedule. Just know that they always have to have 1 hour recording each of those different timesheets that they wind up submitting. This includes any college breaks. So if they're on a college campus, if there's any kind of winter, Christmas break or anything like that, and the campus is actually shut down for a couple weeks, they are still expected to record hours. We have mechanisms in place so they can do some training hours on our website or another website that we usually point members to if they want to do any kind of training hours. So you can definitely do that. They count for 1 hour going through each of those different modules. Another thing that you could kind of set up with your members is set up just some kind of project for them to do over that time period where the campus may be closed. So any type of research you want them to kind of do kind of at home or anything like that. So that's something you would just need to communicate with your member and kind of work out how you're going to handle those college breaks and just making sure that they actually complete their hours. I think this is especially kind of critical for the full-time members because if they are starting kind of in that August, that 11 months, they get to 1,700 hours, they really need to be doing about 35 to 40 hours per week. And we have that flex time because we're kind of anticipating this college break if they're on a college campus in the middle of the year here. So that's 2 weeks of them probably not getting 35 to 40 hours. So at least doing some good bit of hours during that time will make sure that they're not necessarily rushed towards the end of their service. But doing close to 40 hours during the entire year for full-time members will get you kind of past that 1,700 hour mark. But just something to think about when you're thinking about different college breaks that may be occurring. Members must complete at least one training hour per term. For full-time members, they should already have this because they already did the orientation with me. For minimum time members, it's just a matter of just remembering the required trainings that are required of all members. So Encore training, and then that communication training, volunteer management, civic engagement, that list of 6 different trainings that are required for the program. We just have to make sure that at least 1 hour is recorded before they actually exit the program. Members must only list service hours that are associated with the organizations listed on the position description. So whatever you submit to us on that position description of where your member is going to be serving at, that is the only place they can do their service hours. An example that I give to members as I'm explaining this is that if they happen to get behind on hours at any point and they're trying to make up hours, they couldn't just go to just a random a nonprofit organization in their community to kind of make up hours. It has to be the organization that's on that position description. And that position description, as described during the position description training, that's a living document. So if you need to add a site onto that, if it's a minimum time member, they can have up to 3. You just need to do that as soon as possible so that we can ensure that those hours can actually begin counting for that new service site. Sites can be removed or things can be adjusted, activities can be adjusted within those position descriptions. So just letting us know as soon as possible if anything kind of changes with that description. Members cannot submit their hours in advance of when they serve. So as you're setting up your position description, there's the service schedule, the very last item that's on the position description template there. You may already have a schedule for the member, or the service site may already have a schedule for them. Just know that they cannot just go into the timesheets and pre-fill in their schedule ahead of time. So they have to actually do the timesheets when they're actually due. You can do it daily, so they can go in and put in their time at the end of each day if they want to do it like that. They just can't go in and actually put hours in places where they haven't served yet. And then the last point here is that members must submit their hours to the nearest 15 minutes, where 15 minutes equals 0.25. And that's just how the timekeeping system just kind of reads the hours. So for an example, if they served 4 hours and 15 minutes on one day, they would put that in as 4.25. Some additional policies and limits to just their hours that they're serving. They cannot exceed 20% training hours. So they can only do a maximum of 20% of all their total time as training. And this is professional development for themselves, is what we consider as training hours. So for minimum time members, that's around 60 hours. And then for full-time members, that is 170 hours, is 20% of their 1,700 hours. Same thing with fundraising hours. Only 10% of their maximum time can go towards that. But again, if they're doing any type of fundraising, please send me an email first just to see whether or not it is actually allowed, so that we don't get into a situation where you have to maybe remove hours or remove certain hours that are around fundraising. And then in the middle there is just some limits to each day, week, and month for the members. So members cannot serve more than 12 hours in a day, 60 hours in a week, and then 200 hours in a month. And then just approving timesheets. So timesheets cannot be approved by another AmeriCorps member. This includes Vista. So if you do have another, if you have a full-time member on your campus and you also will be having minimum time members, just know that the full-time member cannot approve minimum time member hours on there. They can most certainly help you to manage the minimum time members, but they can't actually be the ones approving the timesheets of the AmeriCorps members. And again, this includes Vista too. So if you happen to have a Vista on your campus or in your office as well, and you also have minimum time members, that Vista cannot approve timesheets. And then supervisors are ultimately responsible for being knowledgeable of the day-to-day activities of their members as reflected on the timesheets. So just being knowledgeable about whatever the members are putting into their timesheets, that you are verifying that, or you have a way to verify that those are the correct hours that they are doing. So if they are off-site, just working with that service site just to make sure that the member is showing up, or maybe getting a record or a copy of some of the on-site sign-in sheets for the different volunteers that they have. So those are just some different ways to be knowledgeable on the day-to-day activities of the member. So some further ICAP policy specific. So service must occur in the state of Iowa. Timesheets span 2 weeks beginning July 29th. And on our Weebly site, there is an ICAP calendar of specific dates of all of our time periods. It's in the other documents at the very bottom of all the enrollment paperwork on that very first page that you get there. Timesheets must be submitted within 2 days. So the timesheet schedule, the way it is, timesheets, the end of the timesheet period is always on a Saturday, and then members have 2 days to submit it. So it's essentially timesheets are always going to be due on a Monday. From there, timesheets must be approved within 4 days of that. So after they actually submit it, you have 4 days to actually approve that in the Encore system. And then Iowa Campus Combat must be notified within 5 days of a service site change or addition, really as soon as possible, just so we can get it kind of cleared and make sure those hours are going to count towards the members' hours. And then must be notified within 3 days of any kind of term amendment. So term amendments, if you're wanting to extend a member's term of service, that's generally not allowed. You must have a compelling circumstance that actually allows for the member to extend their service. This includes a death of an immediate family member. If the service site just completely closes, that's another compelling circumstance. If the member cannot stay in the town or city that they are actually serving at, those are compelling circumstances for extending a member's hours. So if a member is just behind on hours and they can't actually complete it, that would not constitute as a compelling circumstance to extend their hours. The only other amendment necessarily to send in would be giving an early exit. So that's outlined in the host site agreement as well as the member agreement as well. So members can exit early from their service site. We encourage them to actually serve all the way till the end just to make sure they have enough hours. But if you do get into a situation where they have already completed the majority or all of their hours and you see that they're going to be they can actually exit early. There is an exit form that you would complete, and that just needs to be approved by Volunteer Iowa. We send that into them. Once they actually approve it, then we can actually early exit them from the program. So those are really the two different kind of term amendments, or how you can actually adjust any of the dates of end dates for members during the program. So just some common errors that we found. So members record hours before their start date. With Encore, they should be able to see once I set them up into the system. There will actually be some red writing where a certain date is at, just telling them that you're not authorized to serve at this date. So that definitely helps out with members putting hours before that start date. But if they do wind up doing that, I would definitely reach out to them. Members record hours after their end date. This is something else the new system kind of helps out with a little bit, but members can still kind of put hours after their end date as well. Training hours are not recorded at all, so really encourage your members to, if they're doing any kind of professional development, to put it in that training column that you're going to see here in a second. Training hours are recorded but are listed in direct service. So just making sure you're putting all your hours in the appropriate columns in the timesheet. Another one that's coming up recently here is members do not submit their last timesheet if they're one timesheet early or they're exiting early from the program. So if a member completes all of their hours and it's within one time period or two time periods, they can't exit without having to submit anything like an early exit form or anything like that. They'll just need to still submit that last timesheet that may have 0 hours on it. And members sometimes kind of forget that because they just see that they hit the 300 hours and they don't need to submit any more timesheets. But technically, if they're going all the way through their service, they still need to submit that 0 timesheet. And in that case, it's okay to have a 0 timesheet kind of at the very end if it's just one time period. And then members do not submit timesheets in a timely manner. So they'll get constant reminders from the system when timesheets are due. So they'll get a reminder before timesheets are due. And then if they miss their deadline, they'll actually get a reminder again that their timesheet is late. So the policy that we have here is that if there's ever 2 timesheets that are late, I'll send a personal final email to the member to submit their timesheet by the next timesheet due date. If they do not do it by that date, then we'll begin exiting them from the program. So that's why so many reminders are kind of in place to make sure that members are actually successful in the program. But that is one of the consequences for late timesheets is that if you eventually get 3 late timesheets, which is a month and a half of not telling us kind of what hours you've done, then that can start the exit process. So just some support from us. Members that record hours before their start date, we will definitely notify you and the member, and we'll get the timesheet unlocked for you. We have to request that from Volunteer Iowa before we can actually do anything or you can do anything within that timesheet. So we'll definitely notify you of that. Same thing with the end date towards a member's exit. We'll definitely reach out to you to make sure that is corrected. Training hours are recorded but listed in a different column. Reach out to you as well, and then we'll also request that that timesheet is unlocked so you can go in there and start shifting some of the hours there. And then again, I think I just mentioned this, is that timesheets that are not submitted in a timely manner, we'll definitely send you and your member a notification just letting them know that timesheets are due by a final certain date if they have 2. And then if they're not done, if they're not submitted by that time, then we'll begin the exiting for cause process from the program. So just some further implications. This first one is really if they are knowingly doing prohibited activities and counting that towards their hours. The member could get into a situation where they have to repay their education award. If unspent, then the member does not receive the education award altogether. But if they have begun to spend it, then they could actually have to repay some of that if they're knowingly doing prohibited activities. IAC, Iowa Campus Compact may have to repay education award as well. If it's tied to any kind of professional development funds, those costs may need to be repaid. Future funding of positions reduced at the host site, so at your host site. So if they are doing prohibited activities or there are a lot of timesheet issues that are occurring, then that could affect kind of future funding of positions for your site. And then ultimately just future funding reduced for the program overall from our grantor. So just how many positions that were even allocated for the next coming year. So going into the Encore timekeeping system, so once I begin receiving enrollment information for your minimum time members or your full-time members, I will give you access to the Encore timekeeping system. So you can see it on the screen here. It's very simple. You log in, you go to the website, make sure you're in the 2018-2019 year. Then you'll locate our Iowa Campus Compact program. It's on the left-hand side, and then you're going to select the Site Supervisor tab underneath it. I will provide you with a username and a password. So again, if you already have members kind of in the program or starting the program, or I've already received some enrollment paperwork, you should already have it sent to you. If not, then that's something to kind of look forward to. Once you start sending some enrollment items to me, then you'll get an email from me with your username and password with some additional instructions. And the additional instructions are on here. So you'll get this kind of same little blurb here in an email format. And you can just click on the Weebly site right here, and it just takes you through the entire process of signing in. I just want to go over a little bit really quickly just what approving timesheets actually look like. This is in that tutorial that you'll have in that email. But you'll just click on the time tracking at the very top of the screen, select the member service hours, and then you can select approve member timesheets. And to approve timesheets, you just click on the approve button for the member and be taken directly to the timesheet and review that timesheet. And you can approve it, or you can reject timesheets. And this is especially useful if, as you're looking at the timesheet, you see something kind of wrong, or maybe they put in hours that are not correct. This is your opportunity to actually send it back to them to correct it before it's actually fully approved to us. So if it's fully approved by you, then we have to go through the process of contacting Volunteer Iowa to unlock their timesheet. But there is a step kind of before that you can actually review it yourself. If you find some errors on there or some things that need to be kind of adjusted or anything like that, then you can actually reject it first, send it back to just a member. They would resubmit it, and then you can approve the timesheet altogether. So I've seen supervisors kind of use this to their advantage. So they reject it, and then you can actually there's a comment section that you can put in there that you can give to your members to kind of give them some guidance on how to actually correct their timesheets there. So just letting you know that those two buttons are available: approving and then rejecting timesheets for further corrections. You will receive email notifications when members submit their timesheets. And then once you go on to your Encore account, you'll see them all. You should have them all on your very front page there of which timesheets need to be approved and which ones do not need to be approved. And then again, if you have any approved timesheets that maybe a member comes back to you and says, oh, I actually need to include some training hours onto a timesheet I submitted a couple of timesheets back, just contact us with the member's name, the timesheet that they're wanting to edit, and then just a short explanation of what exactly they're trying to edit in that timesheet. And then for both member and for the site supervisor here, by hitting the submit button and the approve button, you are certifying that everything on that timesheet is accurate and true. So please do not falsify any of these. I tell members that if they do falsify, or it's figured out that they're falsifying timesheets, then that's automatic exit from the program there. So I'm just kind of letting you know of that once you hit submit and approving, you are certifying that everything that's on that timesheet is accurate and true for the member. And then here are just the different categories. So once a timesheet, once you go into the timesheets, this is kind of what your members are looking at. So they have 3 columns. The first column there is service, direct service. So this includes all the capacity building activities that you're going to be, that they're going to be doing in the program. Even though they're doing indirect service and it's capacity building, you know, it's just the language of direct service is just kind of what the program has right now. So just know that the majority of the hours are going to go in that column for your members. And then here is the training column. So again, that limit of 20% of the members' hours, so they cannot go over 60 for minimum time, or 170 for full-time members. And members should communicate additional information about their trainings in the comment section, which really the training certification form is kind of a way you can do that without putting anything in the comments. So we'll talk about that in a couple slides here, but that training certification form is really your way of communicating what trainings they've actually done. So you actually don't need to put anything into the comment section for us. And the same thing with the fundraising, they can't go over 10%. So if they are doing something fundraising wise, then just know that they can't go over 10% of that, of their overall hours. But again, just let me know ahead of time, or if they're about to put it in, just give me a quick blurb of what exactly it is, just so I know whether or not it is actually a approved activity, fundraising activity for the member. So there is a comment section there. So if you have a member that is at multiple sites, this is how you can designate how many hours they did at each site. So if you're if you have a full-time member The comment section doesn't really apply to you whatsoever. They're at one site. They don't really need to put anything for training. We have that training certification form. And fundraising, I should know about kind of beforehand without having to do any kind of explanation. But if you have a minimum time member who is at 3 different sites, this is how you would let us know how many hours they did at each site. And it can be as simple really as this. So if it's a minimum time member, just let us know that they did 3 hours at Iowa Campus Compact, 15 hours at the Civic Engagement Office. So whatever their sites are, it could be at the United Way here, 4 hours at the United Way, 3 hours at this homeless shelter, and then 3 hours somewhere else in your Civic Engagement Office. That's how you can kind of let us know where they're doing all of their different hours. You can do the training hours, but it really just need to be in this format here, so they don't need to tell us exactly what the trainings are. But again, that's why we have that, we developed that training certification form, so you don't necessarily have to even tell us in the comment section any training hours or even any fundraising hours. We'll kind of get those blurbs ahead of time already, so you don't even need to do that. So this is really just to designate how many hours they did at each different site. So I'll leave it here. If there are any questions, definitely put it in the chat box. Otherwise, I think that is it for timesheets. So again, once your members are starting the enrollment process, I will send you an email with the username and password for your Encore accounts. The same thing will happen with your members as well. So once they are fully enrolled, I will send out a similar email to them, connecting them to Encore, giving them their username and password. And once they get that initial login, they can actually go in and change their password. We encourage you to go and change your password after that. We can just set everything up for them, so nothing needs to be set up on your end or even on our end per se. We just kind of shoot them a login and just the site link, and then we can just begin logging all of their hours. So if there aren't any questions, thank you so much. This will be available on the Weebly site underneath supervisor trainings. So definitely come back here if you have any questions, or definitely reach out to either me or Justin, and we can definitely help you and try to answer as many questions as we can. So thank you so much.